What's up guys, I'm Sal, thanks for checking out the video. In the last video about the car, we converted it to 5-lug hubs, and then we just kind of left it there. So today we'll be finishing up the Z32 brake upgrade up front, and then I got the tires mounted on my wheels, so they look pretty dang sweet. So I'm really excited to get them mounted on the car, and yeah, it's been a long time coming, so let's get into it. Okay, quick refresher on what we're actually installing. So I have the Shop Max Z32 brakes. I have an ISR 300ZX to 240SX conversion line, stainless steel, and then some Brembo, just plain rotors. I kind of prefer this look on a street car as opposed to like slotted or drilled. Okay, so this is how we left it last time. You can see the 5-lug hub and then the stock brake calipers sitting back there on the sway bar. We're ready to install the new Z32 brake calipers, but there's a small issue that we got to handle first. So for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the way that it was cast or I really don't know. These threads in here are like really coarse, and I think they're a tiny bit oversized, and when you go to thread the caliper bolts in, they go like a quarter turn or half a turn, and then they just stop. Like they don't want to go in any further. It's the correct thread pitch, but they just like don't want to go in, and I like really don't want to force it. It feels, really tight. So what I ended up doing was just ordering a tap set on Amazon. I forget what size. It's M12 by 1.25, and we'll just run it through there. I did this on the other caliper and it worked fine. Just taking my time, going forward and back so that I'm not breaking this or causing any problems. I think it's just, I don't know, for whatever reason, the threads are like really coarse and they just don't want to accept a bolt right now. So we'll just clean them up quick and then we should be good to go. So after the first one, you can see just how many metal shavings there are. And you can kind of tell a difference on the threads, like just what they look like after being cut down. And I mean, you can tell it's just like it threads now. Whereas the other one, like I showed earlier, like you can't even get half a turn and then it just gets rock solid. So yeah, so we'll just bang out the other one too, and then we'll be ready to throw it on the car. Okay, cool, so we got both holes tapped. We can thread the bolts in now, and look at all the pile of metal shavings. Like, it's just crazy. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, or if they actually do need to be tapped to be used properly, but dang, that seems a little bit excessive. But I mean, hey, all the bolts threaded in now, so we're ready to move on. Before throwing the caliper in, I learned from the other side that it'd be easiest to throw the brake line on first, attach it in the back here, before you get it in the car, because then it's just a huge pain and you only have to worry about the one fitting, to the hard line. So we'll set this up here. On the driver's side, I just had it kind of come out, to the front of the car a little bit so that I could do like a loop and then attach to the coilover. So I'm gonna aim for that same sort of angle here, and then we could always adjust it on the car if we need to. So I just remembered I have these awesome lights that my parents got me for Christmas. Thanks, Mom and Dad. They're supposed to sit up under the hood like this, but they're detachable. And then I'm just kind of hanging them from, you know, some of the wiring up here under the wheel well. But man, look, it like lights it up perfectly. So next thing we're gonna do is disconnect the factory caliper. And we'll start by taking off these little locking, I don't know, shims, whatever you want to call them. There's one there and one here. And then instead of detaching the line here and here, because we're not reusing the caliper, I'm just going to disconnect the line here, and then we'll take out the caliper and line together. That way we're only connecting it in one spot, just right here afterwards. Well, that went about 1,000,000 times easier than the other side. I think the key thing was having this already plugged, because on the other side I didn't. And then I got this side in, and I was, you know, frantically trying to do it before I lost all the fluid. And then this side started dripping, so I was trying to get that in here, and I was just ended up with brake fluid everywhere, and it was a huge mess. But having this already set up and then just having to pop that in was huge. So I actually am really happy with how that went. If you don't know, there's actually like these two tabs on either side that the nut can like lock into. So that's why I tapped this like the lock thing back in before tightening this down, because then I don't have to hold this. It just kind of holds itself. So yeah, I like the routing. This is how I have it on the other side. It kind of like loops up and over, and then down behind and into the hard line. Okay, so I got a few more things to button up before we can put the car back on the ground and take it for the first drive. The first one is rolling the fenders. So I already did the other three corners, but I'll document this one here. If you don't know, you roll the fenders because there's this lip on the inside of the fender, and when, you know, the suspension compresses, if the tires are too wide, they could hit that, and then you end up chewing up the outside of the tire. So by rolling it, you use this thing here. It just attaches to the hub, and then it rolls back and forth, and you slowly work it out, and it creates a lip on the inside. Or I guess it takes away the lip on the inside and rolls it in, just so that there's more clearance for the wheel and tire to compress up into the wheel well. So yeah, the fronts were already very crudely rolled. It looks like they might have been like self-clearanced with the tire just coming up in the old setup. And then the rears are not rolled yet. So I feel bad rolling them, an S chassis in 2023 without rolled fenders, but I think it's a necessary evil, and you know, it's not like I'm cutting them and doing over fenders or something like that. I think rolling them is acceptable. So yeah, we'll get the wheel off, and I'll walk you through rolling this fender. Okay, so I ran into the same problem on the other side, but you can see that when I go to, it can roll through here right now, but when I get up to the top, it's like way above, so it's not actually doing anything. So I actually have to lower the suspension in order to, you know, get this down to a reasonable distance where it can actually roll the fenders. You want to use a heat gun to heat up the metal, but especially the paint, so that it doesn't crack when we roll it over. Also, you want to reach up behind here and make sure there's no crap behind there, so that when we roll it, it's not rolling a bunch of dirt into itself and creating all these dimples on the outside. Okay, lovely. Now that I've gotten dirt everywhere, we can start rolling. So, start with the heat gun. Oh, that was hot. So you can see that this really just takes some patience and just slowly working the metal lip up and out of the way. I had never done this before, so I was a little surprised at how much pressure you need to use to roll it, but I mean, if you think about it, you are bending sheet metal, so it's definitely going to take some pressure for sure. I think that the art of it is finding the best amount of pressure to use so that you don't get wrinkles and it all just flows smoothly. I honestly started getting the hang of it after doing probably the first Fender. It wasn't a steep learning curve. I think that using the heat gun definitely helped keep the paint from cracking, and I'm so glad that I remembered to wipe behind the fender to remove the dirt because, I mean, you saw how much came out. It was kind of crazy. But you can see their finished result here. I'm actually really happy with how it came out. I had no paint cracks on either side, and I think that the roll itself looks pretty uniform and clean. I said it earlier, but it really pained me to roll the fenders on my car, but first off, it's really not a pristine example by any means, and secondly, at least I knew that I was going to be doing it properly, so it made me feel a little bit better about it. With those fenders rolled, we were ready to mount the wheels and tires. I decided to go with Enkei RPF 1s in 17x9 plus 22, wrapped in Toyo Proxes sport tires in 235/40 R17. I didn't want to go with a cheap Chinese tire, but I also wasn't about to ball out with some Michelin PS4Ss or whatever, so these seemed like a good bang for the buck, and Toyo is a very reputable brand. Before throwing them on the car, I wanted to apply a ceramic coating to help preserve the finish and make them easier to clean down the road. I used the Avalon King ceramic coating that I applied to my truck a little over a year ago, and I've been really happy with the results there. I just start with wiping the wheel down with some isopropyl alcohol, and then I use the provided cloth to apply the coating. Waited a few minutes and then buffed off the excess. It's really super easy to do. Next, got the wheels mounted up and lowered the car down. It's a little tough in my small garage, but we got it down. I was really worried about the fitment being too aggressive because it looked pretty wild with the car up in the air. The front and rear both had some substantial poke, but fortunately on the ground, the fronts sit almost flush with a tiny bit of poke, and the rears are super cambered, but actually tuck way into the fender, way more than I would have guessed. I'll be ordering some adjustable camber and toe arms to dial in that rear fitment and take out some of the excessive camber, but backing up here you can see what I mean about the rears tucking pretty nicely into those rear quarters. There's actually a ton of clearance, which I was not expecting at all. I wanted to make sure that the brakes were good to go, so I did a couple quick brake tests in the driveway, and then I felt comfortable taking the car out onto the street. It felt great to have her running and back out in the sunlight, and it felt even better to take her for a drive. I bedded the brakes as best as I could with the less than optimal roads and traffic that I was dealing with, but yeah, I went to get some beauty shots and I couldn't be happier with the setup. I think the ride height is perfect. I think that the 17s look so much better than the 15s that were on the car, just more my style. And honestly, I think they drive a little bit better too. With so much sidewall on the 15s, they made the car extra bouncy, but with these lower profile tires, the ride is compliant but no longer bouncy, which is super nice. But yeah, I hope I'm able to accurately show you what this setup looks like on my car. I'm super happy with the fitment, and I'm really excited to dial it in even more with some adjustable rear arms. I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for plenty more videos about the S13. Thanks so much for watching, thanks for subscribing, and have a great rest of your day.